Northern Ireland's Footballing Greats presents Northern Ireland's all-time 11s. Manchester United FC. Manchester United are one of the biggest clubs in world football, claiming almost 50 major trophies across their history. Founded as Newton Heath Lyr in 1878, they took their current name in 1902, following a rescue from financial oblivion by local businessmen. There are many clubs with United in their name, but most people in the world would know who you meant if you said United are playing today. No club in Europe has had more caps awarded to their players. Among those who have appeared for United and won over 100 caps are Bobby Charlton, David Beckham and Wayne Rooney of England, Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo, Denmark's Peter Schmeichel and Northern Ireland's own Johnny Evans. In 1977, this quintet of players, Tommy Jackson, Dave McCreary, Jimmy Nicholl, Sammy McIlroy and Chris McGrath, lined up for Northern Ireland in a testimonial against Glentoran. As of the end of 2024, the Irish Football Association has awarded 392 caps to 31 different Manchester United players. The first player to take the now well-trodden path from Belfast to Manchester was Jack Peden, who joined Newton Heath from Linfield in 1893. The first player officially capped by Ireland as a Manchester United player was Mickey Hamill in 1912. So, who will find a place in Manchester United's all-time Northern Ireland 11? Goalkeeper Harry Gregg. When Gregg joined United in December 1957 for a fee of £23,500, he became the world's most expensive goalkeeper. In February 1958, he survived the Munich air crash that claimed 23 lives, including 8 of his teammates. The death toll may have been even higher had Gregg not returned to the wreckage to drag several survivors to safety. Gregg was back playing just weeks later, and featured in the FA Cup final defeat by Bolton. In the summer of 1958, he played for Northern Ireland at the World Cup in Sweden, where his performances saw him named as goalkeeper of the tournament. Gregg spent a decade as a player at United, but was blighted by injuries and never claimed a major honour. He later returned to the club as a coach from 1978 to 1981. In 1994, he featured in a Reebok TV advert celebrating United's greatest ever side, and in 2012 he was awarded a testimonial as United visited Belfast. 3 other Manchester United goalies have been capped by the Irish FA. Dual Irish international Tommy Breen had honed his goalkeeping skills under Alicia Scott at Belfast Celtic. He joined a struggling United side that would eventually succumb to relegation in 1937, but helped them bounce back to the First Division a year later. The Second World War brought his United career to a close and he played out his career back in Ireland. Ronnie Briggs was a product of Belfast's famous Boylan Club. At United he was backup to Harry Gregg, and it was that role Thuther also fulfilled for Northern Ireland. His United debut was an inauspicious 6-0 defeat by Leicester in January 1960, but he enjoyed a decent run in the team the following year. He left in 1964 after 2 years without an appearance, joining Swansea where he won his second and final cap. Roy Carroll was an established international with plenty of lower league experiences when signed by Sir Alex Ferguson in 2001. Largely backup during his 4 years at Old Trafford, in 2003, he did become Northern Ireland's first title winner of the Premier League era, adding an FA Cup winners' medal the following year. Although guilty of some high-profile mistakes, he was highly thought of by Ferguson, who bemoaned his departure in 2005. Right-back Jimmy Nicholl. Versatile player, capable across defence or in midfield, it was as a marauding right-back that Nicholl is best remembered. After growing up in Rathcoole, Nicholl moved to Manchester as a youngster, with the club helping his family escape the troubles that were escalating in Belfast. He made his debut in United's 1974-75 Second Division season, becoming a regular as they made a successful return to the top flight in 75-76, finishing third, though he had lost his first team place in the closing months of the campaign, so missing out on an FA Cup final appearance. The following year he was one of 3 Northern Ireland men in the United team that defeated Liverpool in the Cup final. Nicholl was a regular for United for 5 seasons before losing his place in 1981, and moving on to spells at Sunderland, Rangers and in the NASL. He has had a lengthy managerial and coaching career, and has served as Northern Ireland assistant manager under Billy Bingham, Ian Barraclough and Michael O'Neill. Left-back Mal Donaghy. for £650,000 fee, a record for a Northern Ireland international, that Alex Ferguson paid Luton for Donaghy in 1988, was a risky move for a 31-year-old. Fergie was struggling to shape United into a force again, and felt that a 58-time capped international with a decade of experience in the top two divisions was a worthy risk. Donaghy was a regular in his first season at United, but thereafter he was largely back up to other big-money defensive talent. His versatility allowed him to step in wherever needed. He played his part in many of Fergie's earliest successes, but the only medals he claimed were in the 1990 Charity Shield and as an unused substitute in the 1991 Cup Winners' Cup and Super Cup wins. He played 20 times as United fell agonisingly short of the title in 1992, and shortly thereafter departed to finish his career with 2 years at Chelsea. Centre-back Johnny Evans. After coming through the ranks at United, followed by his younger brother Corey, it was while Johnny Evans was out on loan with Royal Antwerp and Sunderland that he emerged on the international stage, notably making his debut in an unfamiliar left-back role as Northern Ireland's defeated Spain 3-2 in 2006. Evans established himself in the United first-team squad from the 2008-09 season, although was usually regarded as backup to the regular centre-back partnership of Ferdinand and Vidic. He collected 3 Premier League titles, 2 EFL Cups and a FIFA Club World Cup, becoming Northern Ireland's most decorated player in English football. Evans often found himself sidelined in the chaos that followed Sir Alex Ferguson's retirement in 2013, finally leaving United in 2015. He enjoyed spells with Premier League clubs West Brom and Leicester before making a surprise return to Old Trafford in 2023 at the age of 35. In his first season back at United, he claimed an FA Cup winners' medal following a surprise final win over local rivals Manchester City. Centre-half Jackie Carey. Dublin-born dual international, became the first foreigner to captain an FA Cup winning team when United defeated Blackpool in 1948. In 1949 he was Footballer of the Year, and in 1952 led United to the league title. As a youth, Carey had played Gaelic football for Dublin's minor team before joining St James's Gate, where he was spotted by legendary United scout Billy Behan. Although he would later be best known as a right-back or centre-half, at Old Trafford he began as an inside forward and helped the club to promotion from Division 2 in his first season. During the Second World War, Carey guested for many teams including Man City and Liverpool. He served in the British Army, and while serving in Italy, he was offered big money to continue his playing career in the country. It was after the war, under new manager Matt Busby, that Carey enjoyed his best years. In 1947 he captained a Europe 11 that faced Great Britain. Among the other Northern Irish defenders to feature for United are Pat O'Connell, later famous as Don Patricio, the saviour of Barcelona, a home nations title winner with Ireland in 1914. His time at United was overshadowed by a 1915 betting scandal. Mickey Hamill, another member of Ireland's 1914 British Championship win. In 1912 he had become the first United player to win an Irish cap. In a much-travelled career he featured for both Belfast and Glasgow Celtics, Manchester's United and City, as well as playing in the USA. Walter Macmillan was a versatile defender. He made his name with Cliftonville and Distillery, winning amateur caps before briefly joining Arsenal. When he signed for United in 1933, they were really struggling, and were fortunate to avoid relegation to the third tier. Although he mostly played reserve team football for United, he did retain a place in the Ireland panel. He later played more regularly for Chesterfield and Millwall's first teams. Tom Connell was capped in May 1978 while a Coleraine player. Shortly thereafter he joined United but made just 2 first-team appearances, consecutive 3-0 defeats by Bolton and Liverpool that December. He remained at Old Trafford until 1982 when he joined Glentoran. Part of the deal that took him back to the Irish League saw United face the Glens in a friendly at the Oval, a match which allowed George Best to guest for his childhood club. Pat McGibbon joined United from Portadown as a teenager. He played for the A's and reserves alongside many of Fergie's fledglings, including the likes of Beckham, Scholes and the Neville brothers. McGibbon made just 1 first-team appearance for United, but it was a painful night as he was red-carded in a League Cup defeat by York. He left United having won 5 Northern Ireland caps, going on to win trophies with Wigan and Glentoran. Paddy McNair was thrust into the United defence in 2014 during an injury crisis. Aged just 19, he settled well into the first team, playing at both centre-back and right-back and gaining rapid elevation to the Northern Ireland team that were well on their way to Euro 2016 qualification. His career at Old Trafford somewhat stalled when bigger names returned to fitness, and he elected to accept a £5.5 million transfer to Sunderland shortly after his return from the Euros in France. Dave McCreery, midfield. Dave McCreery was one of 3 Northern Ireland players to come through the ranks at United during the 1970s and make an impact on the first team. McCreery's regular shirt was the number 12, his rambunctious play making him a useful option for Tommy Docherty and Dave Sexton to bring off the bench, either to lead the attack or shore up the midfield. McCreery's record as United's most used substitute stood until surpassed by Brian McClair in the mid-90s, by which time the number of substitutes allowed per game had risen from 1 to 3. McCreery left United in 1979 in search of more regular game time. He subsequently played for QPR, Tulsa Roughnecks and Newcastle before taking his boots to Scotland, Sweden and Coleraine, as well as featuring at the 1982 and 1986 World Cups for Northern Ireland. Jimmy Nicholson, wing half. Creative, hard-working wing half, Nicholson emerged at a difficult time for Manchester United. The club was rebuilding after Munich, and it was Jimmy who was earmarked as the next Duncan Edwards. He was an established first-teamer and international at just 17, but a succession of injuries saw him fall behind the likes of Nobby Stiles and Paddy Crerand as Matt Busby slowly reshaped his side for the 60s. The last of Nicholson's 68 United appearance was in December 1962, still 2 months short of his 20th birthday. He dropped into the reserves, all the while retaining his Northern Ireland place, until transferred to Huddersfield in December 1964. He enjoyed 9 years of regular football with the Terriers, and was a fixture on the international stage into the 70s. Midfielder Sammy McIlroy. The last of the Busby babes, McIlroy burst onto the Old Trafford scene as a 17-year-old, making a goal-scoring debut against Man City in November 1971. He was lucky to survive a serious car accident in 1973. By the time he returned to match fitness after nearly a year out, United were struggling. Relegation to the second division allowed him to re-find his form, and he was an ever-present in Tommy Docherty's exuberant young team that eased to promotion and quickly re-established themselves in the top flight. FA Cup disappointment against Southampton was followed by victory over Liverpool in 1977. Another cup final in 1979 proved one of the most exciting in the competition's history, with United coming from 2-0 down against Arsenal, with McIlroy scoring an 88th-minute equaliser, only for Alan Sunderland to score an immediate winner for the Gunners. McIlroy remained an automatic choice until the record-breaking £1.5 million signing of Brian Robson in October 1981. Sammy McIlroy left Old Trafford behind for Stoke the following February. He later played for Man City and captained Northern Ireland at the 1986 World Cup, before entering management, taking charge of his country from 2000 to 2003. Alternative midfielders. Tommy Jackson's career appeared to be on the wane when Docherty signed him in 1975 to bring experience to a young squad. It was an astute signing as United managed third place on their return to the top flight. He made his final appearance in May 1977, as many regulars were rested ahead of the FA Cup final. Chris McGrath's arrival at Old Trafford in 1976 was a bit of a surprise. He had been something of a starlet with Spurs but had then lost his way. He was a Docherty-type player, with a bit of verve about his play, but still he failed to command a spot in his 5 years at United. He had more joy at international level, Danny Blanchflower appreciating his wing play and affording him more freedom than was possible at club level. Keith Gillespie was highly thought of by Alex Ferguson, impressing in his handful of United appearances. Particularly impressed was Newcastle boss Kevin Keegan, who requested Gillespie as a make-weight in the 1995 transfer deal for Andy Cole. While he never hit the heights of the rest of the class of '92, Gillespie enjoyed a long career in the English top flight and on the international stage. Phil Mulrine was one of many midfielders to earn Northern Ireland caps, without ever really troubling the United first team. Others to have similar experiences were Ballymena man Tom Sloan, who went on to successes at Linfield, Corrie Evans and Ollie Norwood, who would star as members of Northern Ireland's Euro 2016 squad, and Ethan Galbraith, now impressing with Leyton Orient. Norman Whiteside, forward. The legendary boy man smashed onto the scene in 1982. He made his United debut 2 weeks before his 17th birthday and scored his first Division 1 goal 3 weeks later. Those small glimpses of the youngster were enough to convince Billy Bingham to include him in Northern Ireland's 1982 World Cup squad, where, at the age of just 17 years and 41 days, he became the youngest player ever to appear at the finals. He established himself in the United forward line in the 1982-83 season and continued to break records. He became the youngest player ever to score in a Wembley final as United lost to Liverpool in the Milk Cup decider. He then became the youngest scorer in an FA Cup final when he headed home in a 4-0 replay win over Brighton. Injuries and the emergence of Mark Hughes saw Whiteside lose his United place in the 1984-85 season, but his conversion to a combative midfielder soon saw him re-establish himself, and he finished the season an FA Cup winner, with his curling goal against Everton among the best ever scored in the showpiece. Injuries and the more disciplined approach of new manager Alex Ferguson saw Whiteside's game time limited in his last few seasons at Old Trafford. He still commanded a significant fee when transferring to Everton in 1989, but within 2 years injury had finally ended his career at the age of just 25. United faced Everton in Whiteside's testimonial in 1992. Jackie Blanchflower, utility player. Younger brother of Northern Ireland's legendary captain, Danny, Jackie came through the ranks at Old Trafford. A talented player in attack or defence, it was perhaps his versatility that limited his appearances for United. Unable to cement a place as a forward or in the centre-half role he had made his own for Northern Ireland. He claimed a league winners' medal in 1957, but in the FA Cup final, he was forced to deputise in goals for Ray Wood, who had been injured in a collision with Peter McParland, and Aston Villa ran out 2-1 winners. In February 1958, just weeks after helping Northern Ireland qualify for the World Cup, he was a travelling reserve for United's European Cup match away to Red Star Belgrade. On the return trip, after the plane stopped to refuel in Munich, it crashed, killing 23. Although Blanchflower survived the accident, he suffered injuries that made a return to playing impossible, and he left the game behind at just 24. Winger George Best. What is there to say about Bestie? A cultural icon and one of the most talented players ever to take the field, he emerged in the United team in the 1960s, quickly earning the moniker of El Beetle as his mop-top haircut and overall talent put him on a par with the Merseyside pop phenomenon. He starred in every forward role for United, earning 2 league titles, and in 1968, the European Cup. In the final, he scored a brilliant solo goal as United defeated Eusebio's Benfica to become England's first winners. That year his performances also brought him the Ballon d'Or award, becoming the only player from Northern Ireland ever to be recognised as Europe's best. Sadly, United failed to build on that success, and many of the older players moved on. Best was left to carry the team. He still put in some remarkable performances, such as his double hat-trick in an FA Cup tie at Northampton, and was United's top goal scorer for 5 consecutive seasons. But the hard tackles and the on- and off-field pressures weighed heavily on a man still in his mid-20s, and Best announced his retirement in 1972. He was coaxed back before walking away from Old Trafford for the final time in January 1974. Shortly before United's relegation to Division 2, Best travelled the world playing football for the next decade and was seldom away from the headlines for the rest of his life. His lasting hope was that people would remember the football. Other forwards and wingers to have played for United and been capped by the Irish FA include Jack Peden. Newton Heath's first Irishman, enjoyed a lengthy international career and won multiple medals with Linfield and Distillery. Tom Morrison spent 2 seasons with United, but is more remembered for his time with Glentoran, Burnley and Celtic. Derry man Barney Donaghy was only briefly with United. At the outbreak of the Great War he was playing for Dumbarton Harp. He signed up and died on the first day of the Somme offensive in 1916. Davy Liner won the Vienna Cup with Glentoran before briefly joining United. He then played for multiple teams across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Billy Crooks made his name with Glentoran and spent a year at United without making appearance, but he did win his only cap. He stayed another year in the northwest of England with New Brighton, before returning to Belfast. Harry Baird enjoyed a successful spell at Linfield before aiding United to promotion in 1938. It was after leaving for Huddersfield that he was capped for the only time. Jackie Scott played mostly as a winger for United's reserves, but it was at Grimsby that he enjoyed regular football and earned a place in the Northern Ireland squad that travelled to Sweden for the 1958 World Cup, which is where he won his only caps. Like Scott, Sammy McMillan arrived at United from Belfast's famous Boylan club. His versatility in the forward line made him a useful squad player for United in the early 60s, and brought him 2 caps, but he really found his level on joining Wrexham. When Trevor Anderson arrived at Old Trafford from Portadown, he was the first to gain the later oft-used moniker of the next George Best. With Bestie's career on the wane, it was Anderson that often stepped into his boots, and he really didn't stand a chance, as United were relegated in his first full season. He soon moved on, enjoying more fruitful spells with Swindon and Peterborough. He was a regular for Northern Ireland throughout the 70s, and even at the veteran stage with Linfield in the 1980s was strongly considered for Billy Bingham's squads. David Healy made just 3 United appearances across all competitions, but by the time he left Old Trafford in December 2000, he'd already won 7 caps and scored 5 goals for Northern Ireland, setting him well on the way to a national record of 36 goals. It is fair to say that his international career outstripped anything he achieved on the domestic stage, but he still played for some big clubs including Leeds, Fulham, Sunderland and Rangers. So here we have the all-time Northern Ireland Manchester United 11. In goals is Harry Gregg. A fullback we have Jimmy Nicholl and Mal Donaghy. In the centre of defence is Jackie Carey and Johnny Evans. A midfield trio of Jimmy Nicholson, Dave McCreary and Sammy McIlroy, with a front 3 of Norman Whiteside, Jackie Blanchflower and George Best. Thank you for watching. Please visit the website at nifootball.blogspot.com, follow on X at JCDNIFG, and don't forget to like and share this video here on YouTube. Your comments are very welcome. It would be great to hear your feedback and suggestions for future videos. Please do keep your comments respectful and look out for a new video soon.